Let me ask you something honest. How long have you been meaning to start that thing you keep putting off? A week? A month? Maybe longer than you want to admit? Now here's the part that is going to sting a little. You are not struggling because you are lazy. You are not struggling because you lack discipline. And you are definitely not struggling because you do not care enough. You are struggling because your brain has been quietly rewired, and nobody told you it was happening. Here's what I mean. You can sit in front of a video game for 3 hours without even noticing the time pass. You can scroll TikTok for 45 minutes when you only meant to check it for 2. You can watch one more episode at midnight, even though you have work in the morning, and you know that you will regret it. But ask you to sit down and work on something that actually matters to your future. And suddenly 10 minutes feels like an hour. Your mind wanders. You get up for water. You check your phone. You tell yourself you will start properly tomorrow when you are more in the right headspace. Sound familiar? Here's the thing. That is not a character flaw. That is your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. The problem is that it is doing it in a world it was never designed for. And to understand why, we need to talk about dopamine. Most people think dopamine is the pleasure chemical, the thing your brain releases when something feels good. But that is not quite right. Dopamine is not about pleasure. Dopamine is about wanting. It is the chemical that makes you desire something before you have it. It is what gets you out of your seat, what drives you toward a goal, what makes you feel motivated to do anything at all. Think about the last time you were genuinely excited about something, a trip you were planning, a meal you were looking forward to, even just waiting for a package to arrive. That restless, forward-pulling feeling, that is dopamine. Not the pleasure of the thing itself, the anticipation of it. Here is why that matters. Your brain is constantly making decisions about where to spend its energy based on one question. How much dopamine is this activity likely to give me? High dopamine expected? Your brain leans in. Low dopamine expected? Your brain finds an excuse to do something else. It is not a conscious decision. It happens automatically, before you have even thought about it. To understand why your phone has more power over you than your own goals, we have to look at a famous and slightly terrifying series of rat studies. In a series of studies, neuroscientists took rats and deliberately blocked the release of dopamine in their brains. Not just reduced it, blocked it entirely. What happened next was extraordinary. The rats did not become sad. They did not run around aimlessly. They simply stopped wanting to do anything. They would not get up to eat even when they were hungry. They would not move to get water even when they were thirsty. They would just sit there, completely still. Not because they could not move. When food was placed directly in their mouths, they would chew and swallow it fine. They just had no motivation to go and get it themselves. No dopamine, no action. That stillness you just pictured in those rats, that is exactly what is happening when you are sitting at your desk staring at a blank screen, knowing you need to start and just not starting. It is not weakness, it is chemistry. And then the researchers did the opposite. They stimulated the dopamine system, and the rats became relentless. They would press a lever that triggered their reward system over and over for hours. Now obviously you are not a rat, but you can see the same thing playing out in your own life, in a quieter way. Think about the last time you woke up on a Saturday morning with nothing urgent on your schedule. You had things you wanted to do, things you had been putting off all week. And what was the first thing you actually did? If you are honest, you probably picked up your phone. Not because you made a deliberate choice. Not because TikTok genuinely had something important to offer you at 9 a.m. on a Saturday, but because your brain, running its dopamine calculations in the background, knew exactly which activity was going to deliver the fastest, easiest reward. And it pulled you there before you had fully woken up. That is not laziness. That is a brain doing its job in an environment specifically designed to exploit it. Because here is what most people do not realize about the apps on your phone. They were not built by accident. They were engineered by some of the smartest people in the world, with billions of dollars of research behind them, to deliver dopamine hits in the most addictive pattern possible. Unpredictable rewards, infinite scroll, variable notifications. The same psychological mechanisms that keep people pulling slot machines in casinos applied to a device that never leaves your pocket. And your brain cannot tell the difference between a slot machine and a TikTok feed. All it knows is, this thing gives me dopamine, a lot of it, fast, reliably. Now here is the problem. And this is the part that explains everything about why you struggle to start hard things. Your brain has a built-in balancing system. Scientists call it homeostasis. Essentially, your brain is always trying to keep your dopamine levels stable. When your baseline dopamine gets pushed artificially high, by social media, by video games, by constant entertainment, your brain adapts. It reduces its own sensitivity. It downregulates the dopamine receptors. What that means in practice is simple. The things that used to feel rewarding start to feel flat. So what do you actually do about it? The first thing, and this is the most important shift in how you think about this, is to stop trying to force yourself to care about the hard thing. That approach never works long term. Willpower is not a renewable resource. You cannot white-knuckle your way to a consistent habit. What you can do is change when your brain expects the reward. Here is how I actually think about it. Dopamine does not arrive after you finish a hard task. It arrives before, at the moment your brain anticipates a reward coming. So the trick is not to punish yourself into starting. The trick is to make starting feel like the beginning of something your brain already expects to feel good about. Practically, that means this. Before you sit down to do hard work, you pair it with something small that your brain already associates with feeling good. Not a big reward, something small. A specific playlist you only play when you work. A coffee you make only on work sessions. A particular place you go only when you are creating. Over time, your brain starts releasing dopamine at the cue, before you have done a single productive thing, and that dopamine is exactly what makes starting feel easier. This is not a hack. This is just how the dopamine system actually works. You are working with your brain instead of against it. The second thing, and this is where you have to listen up closely, is the ratio system. You are not going to cut out high dopamine activities entirely. That is not realistic, and it is not necessary. What you are going to do is reorder them. Hard work first. Reward after, not before. For every hour of real focused work, you allow yourself a defined window of high dopamine activity afterward. Not during, after. You do not get to eat at the best restaurant until you have done the work that earns it. When you start doing this consistently, something genuinely surprising happens. The hard work starts to carry its own dopamine signal. Your brain starts to associate sitting down to work with the reward that follows. And slowly, almost without noticing, starting gets easier. There is one more thing worth saying before we close this. On the days when nothing is working, when you have tried the playlist and made the coffee and sat down, and your brain is still pulling you toward your phone, do not interpret that as failure. Interpret it as information. Your dopamine baseline is too high right now. And the only thing that genuinely resets it is time away from the high dopamine sources. Not forever. Even one day a week where you keep the phone in another room and let yourself be a little bored goes further than most people realize. Boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is actually your brain starting to remember that other things are interesting. Do not be so hard on yourself. Your brain is fine. What you're up against was never fair to begin with. Understanding that is not an excuse. It is a starting point. If you are ready to start working with your brain instead of against it, join us by subscribing. We are all trying to figure out this human thing together. Now, close the app and go start the thing.